So, a couple of 100 Club stories. I started my all-nighters down there about 1981, and the first character we had as a cloakroom assistant was one Shane McGowan. I knew Shane very well from hanging around the record shops of the West End in Camden. He used to work in my friend Stan Brennan's record shop called Rocks Off, and Ted Carroll had Rock On in Camden. And Shane would sell some of my records for me through Stan's shop, and we just used to hang out together in the punk days, probably a little bit after the first punk days when he was in his Union jacket, and we used to go to Camden Palace, or what was it called, Music Machine then, and he used to go to punk gigs in the Open Anchor and all over the place, and got into lots of scrapes, as you would with Shane. Anyway, so he was my first cloakroom assistant, and he was pretty good at it. He loved his Northern Soul. He used to wander out of the cloakroom and do a strange dance to the records that he particularly liked. It was problematic at times because, being Shane, he was often banned from the 100 Club, and he used to have to ask me if he was all right to come down and do the cloakroom because he was banned from the club. We often made special dispensation for him, and anyway, he went on to greater things. And then the one very soon after that, maybe directly afterwards, was a guy called Mike Peters and a couple of his friends who were in a group. The group were originally called the Toilets in the punk days. They came down to London from, I think, Llandudno, and stayed on my flat because I knew their manager, who was really just a friend off the Northern Soul scene, a maniac called Chris Harrop. And they used to crash down on my flat when they were the Toilets. They later became a mod band, and they were called 17. And then they went away and said, we're going to pack in the mod stuff. And then they were doing quite well at that. And we're going to, I don't know what they were going to be, but when they turned up next, they were wearing huge, they had massive hairdos, all backcombed like Bob Dylan in, I don't know, 1967 or something, and wearing leathers and all sorts of stuff. And they were sort of a bit punky, but they had renamed themselves The Alarm, and their first single was brilliant. It was called Unsafe Buildings, and then they had a string of sort of lower level hits on A&M, I think, quite a big record label, and they were pretty successful, and they used to hang out with U2 and various bands like that. So they were my cloakroom assistants for after Shane McGowan from the Pogues, and so they went on again. Their careers continued, and then the next person, I think this is almost continuously, was a good friend of mine now, Alec Palau, who I used to know pretty well then, and he was in one of the garage bands, they called them, the Stingrays. But we actually put them on down at the 100 Club, and they were really terrific. And Alec was, I think it was the drummer and sometimes the bass player. He now lives out in El Cerrito in Oakland, Bay Area. And he plays with the Chocolate Watch Band and all sorts of brilliant psychedelic 60s groups. And he has his own bands. He's a big, massive record authority on rare 60s pop and trash and garage, and he's moved on as well from the Stingrays, who probably didn't earn much money at all. They had a few singles out on Ace Records, his Chiswick label at the time, and they split up as well. After that, it was generally Northern Soul characters who took over the cloakroom, but the first three were all music stars of the future.